Okay, we'll get the call to order the Planning Commission this January 5th, 2022. If staff could call roll, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ryan Pearson,
Here.
Philip Combs,
Here.
Brian Parsons,
Here.
Paul Wegeman is not in attendance, and Lynn Larson, not in attendance. Don Daniels,
Here.
you have quorum, Chair.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda is the elections of 2022 chair and vice chair. At this time, I'm going to be asking for nominations for the Planning Commission bylaws. Section 1 states that the chair and the vice chair shall be elected each year for 1-year term at the first regular meeting of each calendar year. So I'll go in order. The chair is going to be first. I'm looking for any nominations to serve as chair for 2022. Do I have any nominations from fellow commissioners? Mr. Pearson, Ryan.
I would nominate Don Daniels.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Daniels by Mr. Pearson. Do I have any other nominations for the chair of the Planning Commission for 2022? Here, any Mr. Combs, are you?
No other nominations.
Okay.
I think that's a good one.
Thanks. Okay, hearing or seeing none, all those in favor by saying aye of the nomination of chair of the Planning Commission for 2022 for Mr. Don Daniels.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move for nominations of the vice chair for the 2022 Planning Commission. Do I have any nominations for vice chair of the Planning Commission? Any nominations? No? No. Does anybody want to be? You can nominate yourself, the vice chair.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wagaman just joined us, so maybe you'd like to repeat the question.
Okay, absolutely. So we are now taking nominations for the chairs of 2022. Mr. Wagaman, sorry that you weren't able to vote on the chair position, but it was nominated that Mr. Daniels serve as chair again for the 2022. I'm asking for nominations of the vice chair at this time, and you are able to nominate yourself. And so any commissioner can nominate themselves. So I'm looking for nominations of the vice chair. And does I have any? Mr. Pearson.
I would nominate Ryan Pearson.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Pearson by Mr. Pearson. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair?
No, but I would second that nomination as well.
Okay, that's not necessary, but that's okay. Any other nominations for the vice chair? Seeing or hearing none at this time, we have a nomination by Mr. Pearson, Ryan, for the vice chair of the Planning Commission for 2022. Seeing that there is no other nominations, all those in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Abstentions? Hearing none. Congratulations, Mr. Pearson. Thank you for your willingness to serve as the vice chair of the Planning Commission. We appreciate it. So we close those nominations, and we can move on to our other business. And thanks again, everybody, for trusting in the leadership of the chairs to continue on this prestigious commission that we are so well compensated for over the years. Now we have before us the minutes of December 1st, 2021. Looking for a motion for.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Hey, Mr. Wegeman, good to see you. Mr. Wegeman made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I heard Mr. Pearson first, so we'll go with Ryan Pearson. A second. Any changes, comments to the minutes of 2021, December 1? Hearing or seeing none of those changes. I'm looking for approval by saying aye on the minutes of December 1st, 2021. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes passed as written for 2021, December 1. Okay, moving right along, agenda changes. Any agenda changes by staff?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we do have something before we go on to public comment. We do have a, whoops, sorry, I gotta get back to another page here.
I can share the screen if that
Okay.
would help.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much. I'm trying to run off two computers and
Sure.
so before us tonight, we do have the Planning Commission Resolution number 2022-01. It's a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Lakewood, Washington, recognizing Connie Coleman Lackady for her service on the City of Lakewood Planning Commission. Is Miss Lackady on the line?
I do not see her here, Mr. Chair, but what I'll do if she's not in attendance is forward her a recording of the meeting. So she'll be able to see any comments made tonight by any of you in that recording.
Okay, so is it the proper procedure then I read this resolution?
Yes,
Entirely?
Mr. Chair. You can read it. You can ask other commissioners to help you read it, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, well, I guess I go right ahead and share my reading skills here on the.
Okay.
Okay, so whereas the City of Lakewood incorporated in 1996 and established its Planning Advisory Board in 1995 via Ordinance 14, and then its Planning Commission in 2014 via Ordinance 594, and whereas Miss Connie Coleman Lackady was appointed to the City Planning Advisory Board in 2010, and then to the Planning Commission in 2014, and whereas Miss Coleman Lackady served on the City of Lakewood Planning Commission with distinction through December 31st, 2021, and participated in the Commission's review of the annual Lakewood Comprehensive Plan amendments and updates, Lakewood Sub-Area Plan and adoptions and updates, the Shoreline Master Program action and updates, annual development regulations, reviews and updates, the comprehensive readoptions of the Lakewood Municipal Code Title 18A, annual housing action plans, and the 5-year housing plans, the review and amendment of the Lakewood Critical Area Ordinances, the establishment of the development regulation and zoning for military compatibility, the review of the Lakewood Comprehensive Plan and development regulations for consistency with the county-wide and multi-county planning policies. Now, therefore, the Planning Commission of the City of Lakewood, Washington, does resolve the following. The Planning Commission recognized the value the valuable contributions Ms. Connie Coleman Lackady has made to the policies and regulations governing the City of Lakewood. And the Planning Commission recognized the efforts, passion Ms. Connie Coleman Lackady dedicated to the City of Lakewood, passed and adopted at the regular meeting of the City of Lakewood Planning Commission, the 5th day of January, 2022, by the following vote. All those board members, please accept this resolution by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you so much. And I will lead off Miss Connie Coleman-Lackady. We do appreciate all your years of service, your dedication, and your enthusiasm bringing to this advisory board and the commission. It was fun, and I hope you serve in other capacities within the city in future endeavors. Anyone else have any comments? Yes, Mr. Wagaman.
In that whole write-up, it didn't say anything about the transportation improvement plan. Doesn't that fall under our purview also?
It may well, then I could well have left it out.
Yep.
You did it.
Well, good. It could have went on forever, Paul. So it was a shortened version.
It's abbreviated version. Okay.
Yes. Any other comments? Okay, I think we said it all. I hear or see none, and we will pass on this to Miss Connie Coleman-Lackady, and we thank again for all her years of service on this wonderful commission and previously advisory board. Okay, now we're going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to fellow commissioners and myself for maximum period of 3 minutes. All I ask is if you state your name and the city where you reside. So do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's 2 people on the line to be making comment, I'm assuming. I don't know if they're here for public comment, general public comment, or if they're specifically for the public hearing. So I'll give them the opportunity to clarify that one at a time. Mr. Siebel, or Seibel, excuse me.
Yes, hello.
Are you here to testify on public comment or specifically on the public hearing this evening?
I'm here to attend the meeting. I'm just taking notes. Thanks.
Okay, sure. And then Ms. Minetti, same question for you.
Yes, I'm just here to listen.
Okay,
Thank you.
so with that, Mr. Chair, we do not have anyone here for public comment.
Okay, at this time, we'll close the public comment period to our agenda tonight. So we'll open it up now for public hearing. This is on the 3-year climate change work plan for the Planning Commission of 2022. So we'll turn it over to either Mr. Buer or,
I think Mr. Buer has some opening comments before the hearing.
okay,
Yes, I'm going to share my screen very quickly, commission members. Can you see my screen?
yes.
Yep.
Okay. What I'm going to show or share with you in just a moment is what the proposed action plan looks like. But before I do that, some opening remarks. Last year, when the Planning Commission went through the process of adopting the comprehensive plan, it included a comprehensive plan climate change element. Along with it, I believe, a list of 89 action items. That was adopted by the Planning Commission, recommended for adoption and approved by the City Council. And since then, this item's been before the Commission on numerous occasions as we've tried to call out those 89 items into a manageable work plan. First, we talked about a work plan for 5 years and then concluded that a 3-year work plan was probably be most appropriate at this time. So based upon the comments of planning commissioners over several meetings, I have taken the opportunity to edit this down to, I believe, 34 or 35 work action items for the next 3 years. And I would like to go through these very briefly with the commission, if that's okay, Mr. Daniels.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Buer.
One of the things that we did was we just incorporated a number to each one of these. The number doesn't reference a high priority for one versus another. It's just a number.
Okay.
The first one is to incorporate an environmental justice element into the climate change action plan or work plan. That has not started. You also note that with each task, there is a progress column, a lead department, secondary department, frequency, a start date, and an end date. So not only will the Planning Commission and the City Council, but the public can monitor our progress as we go through these proposed items. The second item is to do a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and forecast. That was done for 20 and has been done in 2021 by Google Environmental Insights. It does show that roughly a 28% reduction in carbon emissions as a result of the pandemic. Now, they will continue to do carbon emissions inventory work for us on an automatic basis. Next, item 3, establish emissions reduction goals for Lakewood. We have not started that. That remains a work in progress, and that might take a couple of a year or so to figure out what that's going to look like. One of the commissioners indicated he had some issues with the use of the word targets. I changed it to goals for now. Number 4, develop a public engagement plan for climate change. One of the things you'll also notice, I did colorize this for those things that are completed or in process, and you see the light tan. We are currently working with the University of Washington and the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance. They are in the process of looking at a public engagement plan, taking into account equity issues. That is underway, and we will begin a process and complete it by the end of May 2022 with a report to both the Planning Commission and City Council under a joint meeting. So that is well underway. There's a lot of interest in this, and we'll see how it moves forward. Number 5 is revising the current strategic plan. The commission may not be aware of this, but the council does have a very specific strategic plan. Right now, the specific number of climate change action items is not that well stated. If this were to be adopted at some point, then this will be added to their strategic plan, and frankly is set up in the exact same manner as that strategic plan. Provide monitoring and implementation reports, add goals and objectives and progress to existing Lakewood dashboard. That's something that's been not started and will probably be a work in progress for a couple of years. Number 7 is quite a big one, and that is working with the utility companies with the purpose of developing and working with them to enhance conservation programs for Lakewood property owners. The goal there is to match their existing conservation efforts with property owners, but also to see if we can't take a look at customizing energy conservation techniques to meet the needs of this community. We have some ideas on this. One of them is to use a stressor versus non-stressor approach to public policy. I'll talk a little bit more about that at some future date, but this is a significant one and could have some very quick means by which to reducing carbon gas emissions and doing so in a positive way. 8, working with the county and other county municipalities to develop a regional approach to carbon emissions and for greenhouse gases. We've had some just general conversations with Pierce County staff and also a little bit with the City of Tacoma. But this is something that I would need the direction from the council, but I would believe this would be a significant undertaking to see if we can't do something as a group. Likely this would look like an interlocal agreement in the future. Number 9 is update the city's non-motorized transportation plan. I think you're going to see that started this year with the completion date, I believe, in the first or second quarter of 2023. Specific to climate change, there are a series of specific items and identified 9A through 9E. I won't go through each one of them, but that is a significant plan document in the long term that will help us with greenhouse gases. Number 10 is developing plans for commercial corridors. Can you hear me okay?
We lost you for a moment, so but you're back.
Okay, all right. Number 10 is to develop key commercial corridors. A lot of that is going to be with respect to potential sub-area plans to see if we can take a look at redeveloping large sections of corridors in Lakewoods. A good example is Stilican Boulevard from basically Lakewood Drive all the way into the interior of the city. You have a lot of low-density single-family uses. Is there some way of combining those properties and intensifying uses and putting people closer to travel corridors? 11, review and update existing mixed-use infill development incentives, looking at fee waivers, density bonuses, development impact fees, tax benefits, etc. It's, I think, time to go back and take a look at infill opportunities, but also to address those areas that have deficiencies in water and sewer, which are likely not going to be seeing much infill development because of lack of infrastructure. But I think we need some more specific mapping on that, and that's why it's been included. Number 12, establish a trip reduction policy that includes remote work strategy and appropriate technology. Consider incorporation to the city's land use and development code. This would be something if you were a city of a certain a business with of a certain size. There would be a process by which the city would request that a certain number of employees work remotely. I can tell you since the pandemic, 70% of the employees at City Hall work remotely, and that's likely to not change. So that's something that has a fairly dramatic impact upon reducing climate change. 13, promote and encourage green development standards. That's on hold because there's actually quite a bit of information out there, and some of it is contradictory, and I'm working with the building official to get a better understanding of what it is and how to use it. I know that the city of Olympia tried to do some things several years ago and did not have much success. 14, excuse me. Use a supplemental greenhouse gas climate change worksheet to look at the potential impacts and mitigation when conducting an environmental review process for new development under SEPA. That one is on hold because I think we're going to need an amendment to the WACs in order to be able to do that. When I say WACs, the Washington Administrative Code. We might want to consider doing it just as voluntary information to see the specific impacts that businesses may have upon greenhouse gases in the future. At some point, number 16, we're going to have to go back in and review Title 14, which is our Environmental Protection Ordinance. That deals with geologic hazards, floods, critical lands, and natural resources. Climate change impacts may require that new regulations be inserted into this chapter. 17, develop an urban forest plan, management plan. 18, hire a consultant to explore ways in which the city and/or property owners can monetize carbon capture and storage. In order to do that, we would actually need to perform an urban forest management plan up front to see what our carbon sink looks like. So 17 and 18 kind of go together. 19 is developing a new climate change chapter. That's been completed, and so I show it in green. 20 is revise the city's Lakewood Tree Preservation Code, which I show is in progress. 21, update the downtown sub-area plan and Lakewood Station plan as required. That's something that we have to do every 2 years. 22, enforce the Uniform Plumbing Code. It seems kind of silly, but that's where we get a lot of water conservation for low-flow techniques in new buildings as well as certain expansions to existing structures. 23, enforcing the International Building Code for electrical vehicles and charging stations. 24, allow occupiable roofs and vegetation and landscape roofs pursuant to adopted international building codes. What may not be known is we already allow for this, but few people take advantage of it because of the costs. And so this is something that the city may try to promote with future redevelopment activities. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the commission. 25 and 26 are continual. adopting and enforcing the Washington State Energy Code. 26, encouraging drought-tolerant plants. We do that already in 18A. We do not require it, but we encourage it. 29, support the creation of a South Tacoma Way bus rapid transit system that connects the downtown of Tacoma to Lakewood, and then all the way to Tillicum, and then finally to JBLM. This is at least a 5-year project. There's work already underway, and we are monitoring it. 30, explore the feasibility of reducing the City Hall footprint from 3 floors to 2 floors. That is in process. We will be releasing an RFQ very soon. The idea is to maybe use the building for other uses. It will require some significant changes. It also has to do with the fact that most of the employees are continuing to work virtually. So this is a change, a fairly dramatic change in how we use space. I also suspect that we'll be looking at doing some major upgrades to energy codes. 31, support neighborhood events for cleanup and recycling, something that we continue to do. 32, examine practices for opportunities to reduce paper consumption. Something that may not be known is we are moving to an entirely document management system from the cloud, so that there will be no filing systems here at City Hall, except for HUD programs. I have to say that because HUD is its own animal, but the whole process is to go to a paperless City Hall. 33, every 2 years, update Title 15 to the Buildings and Construction Code. That will have impacts. We are expecting major changes in construction code techniques for energy conservation. 34, perform a Clover Creek floodplain engineering alternative analysis. This affects primarily Springbrook, but also neighborhoods in the Clover Brook area on the west side of I-5. That's currently in process. The begin date was December 21st with I'm putting down a completion date of March 23rd. So this is going to come back to the City Council for review, and it may mean that the City of Lakewood approaches floodplain issues a little bit differently than we are currently doing. It also affects I-5 because with the recent floodplain maps, it shows that I-5 is now subject to 100-year flood events. So this is a fairly significant study that the city is undertaking. And lastly, Lakewood is a member of the South Sound Military Communities Partnership, advocate at both the state and federal levels for improvements to the I-5 Nisqually corridor. We estimate those improvements at $4 billion would restore impaired ecosystems and mitigate the flood risk at I-5 for future flood events. This program is also in process. So that, in a short, brief explanation, is the proposed 3-year work plan as it pertains to climate change so far to date. This evening, the Planning Commission is to hold a public hearing, accept comments. If you desire, close the public hearing, Mr. Chair, or continue it to your next meeting, and then thereafter debate this and provide a recommendation to the City Council. And with that, that concludes my remarks.
Mr. Daniels, you need to unmute yourself, sorry.
And so sorry. I got this program in front of me here. Mr. Buer's sharing his screen, so I don't see my little icons for unmute. So, okay, so at this time, the public comment period is open for the 3-year climate change work plan. So anyone wishing to speak, they have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city you reside at. And staff, do we have any signed up or wishing to speak tonight?
First, I'll ask Mr. Buer to stop sharing his screen. Thank you. And then we did get in writing today, and it was emailed to the Planning Commission members a letter from Puget Sound Energy's Kira Pfeiffer saying that PSE, excuse me, is in favor of this plan. They're obviously understanding it's subject to some change over time, but they are ready to work with the city of Lakewood. And then I see Mr. Eric Seibel has his hand up, so I'll see if he would like to speak.
Hello,
Go
can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
I just want to say thank you for doing this plan. This is an important plan. It's important to me. I'm sure lots of people would like to know about this. And thank you for the job you're doing. Nice presentation, Mr. Buer.
Great, thank you, Mr. Seibel. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Does Christina Manetti want?
Ms. Monetti does have her hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I wasn't going to make a comment, but I was very interested to hear what you would say. Of course, I'm particularly interested in the aspects of the plan that have to do with the trees. So I'm looking forward to a strong forestry plan for the city. And also, of course, it would be great to have some concrete steps in the direction of more recycling in the city. I don't know if we can somehow organize that better. And also the emissions reductions would also be very important. Things like the bicycle sharing. I mean, some of the aspects seem a bit more like, icing on the cake. I can't really imagine that in Lakewood, people would be sharing bicycles as those programs have been failing everywhere else. So I can imagine that, well, maybe not everywhere else, but I've heard a lot of those projects have kind of closed up already. So thank you very much for all the work you've put into this. I'm really hopeful that we can really take some steps in the right direction with the climate change mitigation here in Lakewood. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Manetti. Thank you.
And then we have Mr. Dunlap as well.
Okay.
Don't fuck it up, Archie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Dunlap.
I didn't want to say, I just wanted to quickly point out, I don't know what you're going to cover when you're looking at climate change, but I mean, we've discussed it when we've made comments at council meetings, with climate change, it does seem that different plants, specifically different trees, are going to cope with climate change in different ways. And I don't know whether you'll be looking at how individual tree species are going to be, how they're going to cope with climate change. I have heard that conifers are going to be particularly badly affected. And I think there has been a projection that many of the conifers in Lakewood are going to be dead within 30 years. I mean, that seems an extreme thing to say, but I think there is a scientific view that that could happen. And the Gary Oaks, sorry to go on about the Gary Oaks, but the Gary Oaks seem to be more resistant to climate change and dry climate dry climates than other types of trees. And I think this differential impact of climate change on different species of oaks is important. And I think that is something you should consider. So thank you for hearing me out.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dunlap, for your comments. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment?
No one else, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. So at this time, I'll ask fellow commissioners if they have any comments and do any suggestions if you want to close the public comment, hold it over till next week for written comments. Any suggestions by fellow commissioners? Mr. Combs?
We've had this on the docket for a while. It's not a new subject, and we've received a lot of input already. I don't know what more we would gain by leaving it open for another month or two, but I would suggest just moving forward with the recommendations unless we have any reason to think otherwise.
Okay, great, Mr. Combs. Thank you for your comments. Any other opinions from, yes, Mr. Parsons? Brian?
I would second that. I think having this plan and starting to move forward is what we want to do. So my opinion would be, let's move forward with this.
Okay, great. Mr. Wagaman, any comments? None? Good. Okay, and Mr. Pearson, Ryan.
All good. Yep.
Okay, all good. I think that covers everybody that was on. So then my suggestion would be we close the public comment period for the 3-year climate change work plan for the Planning Commission. So we'll close it as of today now. And then to follow up with that, a couple suggestions. And looks like some agreement is if you're ready, fellow commissioners, just to make a motion. Someone wants to make a motion to send this work plan as written to the city council. I would look forward to hearing any.
I'd be glad to make the first motion. I don't know what the official motion is for, but I would say to make the recommendation or make this plan a recommendation to the city council. Does that sound about right, Mr. Buer?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, Mr.
All
Buer.
right, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair and Mr. Buer.
Yeah.
The motion, as I understand it, would be to approve the work plan as submitted to the Planning Commission for this
Yep.
evening.
Yep. Is that good, Mr. Combs?
So motioned.
Yep, so good. So do I have a second in regards to Mr. Combs' motion? A second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Wagaman, we have a second. Any other changes, comments in regards to that motion to send to the city council as written, our work plan? Seeing or hearing none, or was that Mr. No other comments? Okay. So Mr. Pearson, did you have a comment?
Nope.
Okay, all right, no problem. So then hearing no other comments, all those in favor by sending the 3-year climate change work plan to the city council as presented to the planning commission this evening, to all but in favor by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Abstentions, hearing none, all we in favor. Thank you for all your efforts and comments tonight, and the public as well. We thank you
Will
for
we
that.
review this?
Excuse
Don,
me?
Will we review this annually as a planning commission, or what
Yeah,
happens on this whole thing?
Yeah, so we'll go to the, Mr. Buer could probably answer that a little bit.
Well,
more
it's
clarity.
going to, this gets incorporated into the department's work plan.
Yeah.
And I have to report out just about every month the status of this to the city manager. Lucky me. It also goes to the city council for their review. I can certainly provide a report to the commission as time permits. But
Yeah.
a lot of this is going to come back to you for your review anyway.
Yeah.
On the transportation planning issue, you're going to be able to see the non-motorized transportation plan. You will make recommendations on the tree preservation code as it materializes. Much of this will come back to the commission, and I'm happy to provide reports on status of interlocal agreements and some of the policies that we are considering for adoption. I have some great ideas on how to do some things in a very positive way on climate change, and I think the commission is going to be pleased with some of the ideas. They're a little bit different, and it's a different approach, but it's trying to change behaviors in a positive way without necessarily having to adopt additional regulations. So hold on to your seats. More to follow on this.
Hey, Mr. Buer, just a comment is instead of, when you give those reports to the city council and not necessarily I suggesting that you wouldn't have to come to the planning commission and review that whole same thing. If you just sent out the document that you're updating the council to the fellow commissioners, I think that would be acceptable instead of having to, say it over and over and over again. I think that would satisfy most of the or all of the planning commissioners.
Very good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, unfinished business. We do not have any tonight. Under new business, we got the review of the Planning Commission's 2022 work plan. I guess it goes back to Mr. Buer.
Mr. Buer, you want to do it or you want me to do it?
Well,
Why don't you go ahead and do
Yeah.
it?
Okay, great.
I'll share my screen to walk through this quickly. So just a review again of the members in 2021 and the quick overview of what was accomplished last year. All of the members remain other than Ms. Coleman-Lackady, which you already discussed earlier this evening. And so that position is open at this point. It'll be filled once the city council is ready to do so. In 2021, Councilmember Boki was the city council liaison, but from what I understand, and he may speak to this tonight as well, the council may change that. They're going to be having a review of all of the board liaison positions and assigning those again for this year. The role of the Planning Commission is general planning issues. It's also dealing with redevelopment and transportation. And this is just simple language from the establishment of the commission. That's why I'm not reading it quickly. But in 2022, there's the election of the vice chair and chair. You've already done that. We're doing the review of the work plan right now. In this first quarter, though, you'll also see the annual housing reports. Mr. Buer prepares that each year for you and for the council to see activity, housing values, affordability questions, density issues, all sorts of things. So expect that this first quarter. There will also be the climate action change implementation plan, which was accomplished tonight by you to go on to council. You will receive updates regarding the multi-county planning policies, which are called Vision 2050, and also county-wide planning policies, and how those are being incorporated into Lakewood's codes and policies. There will be discussion about the county's buildable lands report assignment of growth targets to the city of Lakewood. And so those will also be first quarter items. You'll get your annual meeting where you hear about the work done either by the city itself or by volunteers in the community regarding shoreline restoration, and then also to review whether the shoreline master program or restoration plan need any updating. This is the year for another one of the every 2-year reviews of the downtown sub-area plan regulations and environmental impact statement. So you'll receive a status report of the type of developments that have happened since the adoption of the plan, and if there's any ideas or recommendations for change in the plan or regulation. As always, there'll be the annual comprehensive plan amendment cycle items. And if you recall, toward the end of last year, this was begun. There's a lot of heavy topics or big topics in this year's docket. And so what we're doing is bringing you one meeting at a time or even multiple meetings at a time, topics ahead of the full review and public hearing process. So you'll have some background prior to public hearings this spring. And so actually next meeting, you'll be getting an introduction to one of the comprehensive plan amendments related to the Tillicum neighborhood plan and its center of local importance. There will be in the second quarter a joint meeting with the Community Services Advisory Board, and this is related really to affordable and attainable housing and human services questions for the city of Lakewood. There will also be the continued look at the downtown sub-area plan or regulations, continuing to work through the 2022 comprehensive plan amendments. Second and third quarter, you'll hear about the update to the transportation improvement plan. And then as was just talked about, you'll be involved in the review of the updates to the tree preservation code. The city council is in the middle of appointing ad hoc committee members for this, but the planning commission will be kept apprised of their work and will be responsible ultimately of making a recommendation on what that ad hoc group puts together. It'll come to you, the planning commission makes a recommendation to the city council. Second and third quarter as well, the annual development regulation changes. These are usually more technical in nature rather than big policy changes, but that process will happen this year. And then creating the next year's docket always happens as well. We're taking a look at, because a huge statutory required review of the entire comprehensive plan, zoning in the city, and all of the development regulations related to those things happens in 2024. We're looking at what kind of a 2023 process we should do. Should it be hold off on the annual review and just really prepare for the big 24 review? So that we'll bring that to you for your feedback and information as well later this year. And then there will be other informational purposes presentations. So for instance, the city's rental housing safety program, other housing programs, public nuisance and abatements. So there may well be other things added by the city council, but that as of now is your 2022 work plan as it sits. So dates subject to change, but that's the content for this year.
Great.
Overall, you have a very busy year, Commission.
Yes. And so question in regards to that, I don't know if I read or didn't read it thoroughly. Is our planning commission dates still the 1st and the 3rd, or are we just having one meeting per month? Or I noticed on the Zoom meetings schedule, it looked like there was only one meeting a month.
Yes, that is, let me start over. Yes, you are meeting twice a month.
Okay.
The Zoom invitation for tonight included the first meeting of each month's scheduled recurring meetings, but
Okay.
just the way you have to set up meetings in Zoom, etc.,
Yeah.
you'll get a separate one for all of the 3rd week.
Okay. I was like, oh wow, we just added
We cut your work in half.
all this work plan, but we're cutting our time that we meet in half. So I thought,
No,
wow,
no.
how's
Yep.
this going to be accomplished? Okay.
No, that was just because of the secretarial side of things and how Zoom works.
Oh, great. Well, like I said, I thought I read it, properly, but just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our next, meeting then would be of this month, January.
The next meeting would be January 19th, so 2 weeks
Okay.
from tonight.
Mhm.
And as it stands right now, the agenda will include, again, the introduction of the Tillicum Neighborhood Plan updates and the Center of Local Importance conversation. Those are both related to the 2022 Comprehensive Plan amendments. And then I don't know this, but if Mr. Buer feels ready to give some kind of a status update to you regarding the tree preservation code update or not, we'll just see where the council and where staff is at that point.
Okay. Mr. Buer, no comment at this time, or wait?
No comment on the tree preservation, but you're likely to receive information, an annual report on the rental housing safety plan.
Okay. Great.
There's
So
some,
now
there's some very surprising information in there about how the rental situation has changed over the last couple of years, given the high increase in property values.
Yeah. So following up with that, any reports from staff at this time? Is that conclude your reports?
Nothing from me, sir. And I can't remember honestly if Mr. Boki was included as a report as well. I think he may have some.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Boki at this time. Do you have anything to report, Mr. Boki?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair Daniels. Just a couple of items for those of you who may or may not have heard or haven't heard. We met, the council had our first meeting of the year on Monday night, and Jason Whalen was installed as the mayor and Mary Moss as the deputy mayor, replacing Don Anderson after a very long tenure. Don decided he wanted to step down from that position. So Jason is the new mayor and Mary Moss is the deputy mayor. Committee assignments were mentioned. We were asked the other night to look at those committee assignments. I don't know if there'll be any changes. We'll see, and we should know that probably by the end of the month. I don't know that we're going to talk about it if it's a study session item next week or not. And maybe we'll take care of it then. Usually it's a fairly quick process in figuring out what assignments we want to do and don't want to do. But I thank all of you for your fine work. I don't know that I'll come back on or not. I think I'd like to, but we'll see. There may be another member who really wants to be on it also, so we'll work that out. Yeah, it's a very ambitious agenda, and we're looking forward to seeing the fruits of this ambitious agenda. Of course, the Planning Commission is, especially in the state of Washington, with the Growth Management Act and various other items that the state requires us to do. It's a very, very important position. And I would note that one of the things that jumps out at me is when you're talking about an update of the non-motorized plan, which is a very important document for us because that really leads us on talking about what goes on to the transportation improvement plan, how we're going to get connectivity in our city and kind of building quality of life issues. So which you have a number, and as a council, we have a number on our plate this year, including the climate change plan and the tree preservation ordinances, which is due for an update. It's now over 20 years old. So we're looking forward to a number of really qualitative improvements in a number of things. So thank you very much for your continued efforts on that. I would hope, and I would just do a side note, I would hope all of you had good luck with the roads. I mean, we came away very impressed as given that we don't get snow every year. And so setting up a snow removal plan is a little bit interesting when you are, preparing for the worst, but not really expecting it. And we got quite a bit of snow and ice. And as a council, we feel like we did pretty well on snow removal. And so I hope you did also. So anyway, thank you for rushing into the new year. And it looks like you'll have 1 or 2 new members this year. So looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Councilman Boki. We appreciate all your efforts and your support and your follow through. We do appreciate it, and thank you for serving again on the council. We do appreciate that, and I thought it was rather interesting. I listened to the YouTube council meeting on Wednesday. And liked everything about it. I was kind of shocked of how many individuals were, talking under public comment about a variety of issues. And just a side note is the tree preservation, naturally, that ad hoc committee. I support which Mayor Jason Whalen stated at the end, that give it a chance to have the ad hoc committee go and work through this process and weed through all of the pros and cons, and then give a recommendation to the council and coming back to the planning commission before we just call it dead and let's give it a chance, and I support that wholeheartedly and hope that the citizens of Lakewood would embrace what you're trying to do, the council, to hear all voices, and from young and old and everything in between, for the particular groups. So I was really pleased that Mayor Whalen made a follow-up comment after the public comment period. So I take that back to the council as well. Sometimes it's not serving as a planning commission to get on and say, as a citizen, my name and here's what I feel. Sometimes it's, not feel if it's appropriate or not, because I do serve as another, on a commission, board of the city of Lakewood. So I just want to share that with you, Mr. Boki, and to send that back to the council. Any other comments for Mr. Boki? Hearing, I don't see any other reports. Go ahead, Mr. Combs.
I would just say thanks to Councilman Boki as well, in case he doesn't come back. I hope that he does.
Yeah.
And thanks to Miss Lackady, who is not came a little late, and we didn't get to say a grand thanks. We did give that recognition letter, but if you talk to her or anyone else sees her, please give her a thank you from the commission here.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Combs. Any other comments from the fellow commissioners? Don't see any last minutes from the staff? Nothing? No? Okay, great. So at this time, we'll call the meeting adjourned of the Planning Commission this January 2022.
I think Paul wants to be
Oh.
recognized.
Oh, I didn't see Paul. Where's Paul? Go ahead,
I have
Paul.
him down in the corner.
Oh, I don't see him. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Hey, my question was, I thought did we say okay to the plan over there on that Swan property on Gravelly Lake last week? Or weren't we gonna have some other public comment on that?
If you're talking about the development agreement that the commission
Yes,
held a public
yes,
hearing on,
yes. Did
that
I miss
was-
something?
there was the evening of the hearing, the commission took action to recommend approval of that development agreement. So it has now moved on to the city council.
Okay, so we're done with that at this point in
Yes.
time. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have some opportunities to talk about housing and stuff as we go in the future. You know, we had a little bit of discussion, and I called Phil Coombs today, and we had a good conversation on that. So I think there's a whole lot of things that need to be looked at, and maybe Mr. Bureau is going to take care of that when he does his housing report too. So
Great.
Two
Thank
things
you.
two things real fast. The Remy project that was just mentioned, that is going to the city council as a study session item next Monday night, and then comes forward for action the next Monday following. So that's on its way, and the council will consider the commission's recommendation. As to housing, we do an annual housing report in the city of Lakewood, something that not most cities do not do. That gets a review by the planning commission before it gets to the city council. So yes, we will be bringing that forward. We'll have an opportunity to talk about many issues pertaining to housing. And this year, I'm going to make it a focus to talk about mobile home units. That kind of came up from Commissioner or Council Member Boki last year, and I hadn't forgotten. And so he's smiling. And so we will be talking about the 14 plus mobile home parks we have in Lakewood, the 1,500 plus units that we have, some of the ongoing abatement issues specific to some of the mobile home parks, and some of the recurring trends that are currently happening in those areas. So there will be a focus point on that, as well as some discussion about where PSRC seems to be wanting to go with mobile homes, which is kind of interesting. And then we will also talk about the just general changing housing market, and then incorporate some of the rental housing information into that. So you're going to have a very broad and I think interesting discussion on housing. I just ask that you wait for it because it's coming.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Buer. Okay, then now at this time, we'll call Mr. Pearson, did you have something?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, I see your mute sign go off, so I didn't know. Okay, great. So at this time, then we'll call the meeting adjourned of this January 2022 Planning Commission. We'll call it meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Happy New Year.